ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna, the great master, the fifth part, the master in divine mood and Narendranath, and we have to start reading chapter 6, section 1 today. And the heading, I would like to modify a little the translation. It is not wrong. The Bengali is Thakur or Narendranather Alaukika Sambandha. Alaukika Sambandha. So what is Alaukika? In the English translation it is said, the extraordinary relation between the master and Narendranath. Now it is not ordinary, it is extraordinary, understood. But Alaukika sense, I would say, not of this world, that is the meaning. Alaukika means not of this world. That is the meaning. Now, let us recapitulate what we have studied up till now. First of all, divine mood. Let us go back to fourth volume, fourth chapter. The third and fourth volume were about Guru Bhav. And at the end of the fourth chapter, it was mentioned that Guru Bhav, when becomes condensed, becomes Divya Bhav. And according to Tantra terminology. And the Diksha given there is Shambhavi or Shakti Diksha, not like our regular Mantra Diksha. Now, to understand this divine mood, that means in Guru Bhav it is mentioned, it is not ordinary Guru Bhav. Guru Bhav incarnation means Vishwaguru, Jagat Guru. And Thakur is to guide everybody according to his faith. That is the Jagat Guru. Now, for that we require Rani Rasmani, Mathur Babu, Vaishnav Charan, those who understood Thakur as Guru. Now we have to understand Thakur Divya Bhav. So those who could see Thakur as God, that is the difference. In Guru Bhav, mostly he used to appear as man, but suddenly as God. And in Divya Bhav, mostly appeared as God, sometimes as ordinary man. That is difference has been shown. Now to understand, we must have a Patra who saw Thakur as God. And Saradananda Swamiji did not have planned to write this fifth volume. So at the end of fourth volume, he introduced Agormani Devi or Gopala's Ma. Because she was a person who saw Thakur as God or Gopal. Now, he says that we never thought that we will get this opportunity. The order in which Saradananda Swamiji has written, what is called now third part, fourth part, second part, first part and fifth part. That is the order in which he has written. But we are studying third, fourth, fifth, second, first. Because this Divya Bhav is introduced in the fourth part itself. And because he had no idea that he can write this, then he saw that avasar is there. It is all Thakur's will or God's will that Sardan Swamiji is writing. So, when he saw, then he brought another character, and that is Narendranath. Narendranath is introduced as the chief or the foremost among Thakur's disciples who could see Thakur as God always. Now, and so the life has been intertwined, he said, between Thakur and Narendranath. Now, he introduced Narendranath by first telling that it was through Brahma Samaj that the modern educated young man could understand Thakur. Previous to that, old traditional people got Thakur. So, and through Brahma Samaj, this modern young man came to know about Thakur. First, Ramchandra Datta and Manohar Mitra came, and then Brahman Swami came. And these people, Thakur had seen in his vision, they will come to you. And they will be of two types. One is who will help you in your Leela, and the others will get their life fulfilled. And as soon as he saw, he could recognize them. So when Rakhal came, he could recognize. And not much is told about Rakhal in the Leelaprasanga, because Thakur had told, don't tell that. And Brahman Swamiji was living at that time. Now, in the Leelaprasanga is written, Narendranath is not living bodily. So he is writing in full detail. Now, about Narendra, we have heard that first he heard about Thakur from Principal William Hastie. One day he came when the English teacher was there. He entered in the classroom and asked what I was studying. Boy said, we are learning Wordsworth's excursions. Excursions means now and then we took students to some unknown land, that is excursion. So William Hastie explained that the poet Wordsworth used to go into trance sometimes, and what he saw there he is describing. And then he said, but these days trance is not seen. If you want to see trance, you go to Dakshineshwar. And that he was known as Paramahansa in those days. Ramakrishna Paramahansa is there, and there you can study. You should go there and study and understand what is trance. But it had not happened in Naren's life. Then Naren's marriage was being arranged by his father. And that girl was slightly darker in shade. And the father, that girl's father, was ready to spend anything for dowry and make Narendra study in England, barrister and all that. But Narendra was strongly opposed. People thought because she is that, so he is not allowing. But Ramchandra Datta had stayed in Narendra's house, and he knew Narendra to some extent. So he told Narendra that if out of spiritual hankering you are not marrying, then why waste your time by going Brahma Samaj and other places? Come with me to Dakshineshwar. And Surendranath's house, he had invited Thakur. And because no good singer was available, he invited Narendranath. And Narendranath sang. And Thakur became immediately attracted. And Thakur told Surendranath and Ramchandra to bring him to Dakshineshwar, and he told Narendra also. So it was this background. Surendranath one day told him, come in my horse carriage. Thakur Naren took 3 or 4 of his friends and went. And there he put that question to Thakur, have you seen God? And Thakur replied in 5 sentences. Yes, I see. Assurance. I see him as directly as I see you. Then Kantian philosophy, Narendra had read that this is not direct at all. Whatever we see is distorted by our indriyas, our mind. So Thakur's next sentence, Thakur knows this already. In Vedanta it is called Deshkal Nimitta. And same thing, Kant says time, space, causation. So our mind projects this, and whatever is caught into that, that only we see. So immediate knowledge, aparokshanubhav. So Thakur describes third sentence, but I see him 1,000 times more brightly and clearly than I see you. 1,000 is a figure representing infinity. So that doubt will go away. Fourth sentence, Thakur says, but who wants to see? They weep for wife and all that. Now that Narendranath was internally weeping. But fifth step, Thakur told, if you do as I tell you, you will also see. This Naren was not ready to accept anybody as a guru. Because of Western education and because of Brahma Samaj. I am a man, he is a man, that's all. Now, and Thakur behaved in very, very strange ways. In 2-3 ways he described Narendra. You are Narupi Narayan, and Thakur's vision that he brought him from Saptarshi. And here it told in the last chapter that I saw him in the Akhanda Rajya, 4 rishis and 7 rishis, like that. So there has to be somebody common in 4 and 7. And 7 rishis, as we know, are different. So here in translator has given a footnote telling that 4 rishis included in 7. And who out of them we do not know. So one who is common between these 4 and 7. Okay. And Narupi Narayan. So same person in different context can be seen as differently. Okay. And Narendra could not understand that, and he said that Thakur is monomania. But he has renounced everything for God and he sees God. That he was impressed. And Thakur said, come again and come alone. So after about a month he came alone, and Thakur touched him by his feet, and he underwent a revolution. He saw that the room and his eye are revolving and going into a void. And he thought, death means death. So he shouted, what are you doing? I have my parents. So Thakur laughed, touched him on his chest and said, okay, not now, it will happen later on. And the whole scene vanished. This put doubt in Thakur's mind. Why he shouts? He is adhikari for the highest realization. So are my visions untrue? So he begged him come again alone. So he went third time. And Thakur took him to Yadu Malik's garden. And there Thakur entered into Samadhi and put his leg on that. And a very different experience happened. Narendra's outer personality became submerged, unknown. And the inner personality Thakur talked with. And he found that whatever I have seen is correct. He asked him, who are you? Why have you come to the world? Etc. etc. And it tallied completely with his vision. This we have seen already. Then Narendra was a strong character. So though he could understand that if we take Thakur as incarnation, then only things are fitting, not other way. But he was not ready to accept that. I will test myself and then accept. Now, how will thing happen? So last chapter was Sri Ramakrishna's love, selfless love for Narendranath. So it was Thakur's love which got Narendranath. He could not escape that. We have seen that. Now, this says not only Thakur's love for Narendra, but the whole relation, both sides, are of a different type than in this world. That is the heading. Alaukika. Now we read. How long Narendra had the master's holy company. Narendranath had the privilege of enjoying. Now one thing I am telling you, those words may not be the same. You know that. Narendranath had the privilege of enjoying the holy company of the master for 5 years. The reader might take us to mean that he spent those years continuously. Sadhana Swami is fully balanced and objective, though he is more concerned with the inner life. The reader might take us to mean that he spent those years continuously at the holy feet of the master at the Dakshineshwar. It was not so. Like all the other devotees of Calcutta, he also used to come from home and pay visits to the master during those years. But he, it is certain, visited Dakshineshwar at short intervals, as he became an especial object of the infinite love of the master from the very beginning. So that has started working. It gradually came to be regarded an essential duty of Narendra to go there once or twice a week. And when there was leisure, to spend 2, 3 or more days there. So that is how 5 years. It is not as if there were no deviation, again balance. It is not as if there were no deviation from this rule at times. But greatly attracted to him from the beginning, the master did not allow him to break that rule to any great extent. When Narendra could not come to Dakshineshwar for a week or for any reason, the master would be quite restless to see him, and sending him word would have him brought him to him, or he himself would go to Calcutta and spend a few hours with him. There were, as far as we know, no gaps in Narendra's regular visits to Dakshineshwar for 2 years following his acquaintance with the master. But he was compelled to break that rule when the whole responsibility of managing his family affairs devolved on his shoulders at the sudden death of his father, soon after his appearing for the BA examination by the beginning of 1884. So he has described the external thing fully in balance. Now, 5 kinds of behavior of the master towards Narendra during this period. That is sadhana style. Analyze, find out. When we try to analyze the master's dealing with Narendra during those 5 years, we find 5 main divisions in them. First, since his very first meeting with Narendra, the master had known with the help of his inward vision that a highly qualified person like Narendra was very rare in the spiritual world, and that Narendra was born to render him great assistance in the work which the Divine Mother had entrusted to him, namely the work of renovating the eternal religion, renovating like a building, eternal religion to serve the needs of the modern times by clearing it of its age-long undesirable accretion. In this paragraph, we have to understand a few things. One is Divine Mother. We will understand that Divine Mother is not outside. Divine Mother means Thakur's real nature. So Thakur's personality, we see 2 parts. Thakur himself has said, there is Bhakta in this and Bhagwan. So, when any doubt comes in the external part, the Bhakta part, Thakur refers to his real nature and says, Mother told me, Mother told me. So now we will not be deluded by this Mother told me. So inside vision, he has seen Narendra has come to help him in his mission. And his mission is to this religion of our country or religion eternal has some accretions. So if we remove that, it will be renovated. And that is Thakur's speciality. Brahma Samaj and Arya Samaj, they try to remove something from our religion. Like Murti Puja, we do not do and all that. Historically, that checked the Christian onslaught for a little time. But full solution is done by Thakur. He accepted our religion in full total. Only removed was superstitious parties. He did not remove Murti Puja. But in the name of Murti Puja, some wrong things are done that he removed. And in this work, Narendra is going to help you. Now I will tell some funny things. Boys, they read in some books about Vivekananda. And they will write, he criticized, he removed the superstitions, he criticized this and that. And they almost equate him with Dayananda of Arya Samaj. To the extent I will tell you some funny thing. In Bareilly, there was a private ashram. And there one judge had a photo in his house, a picture, oil painting. Of whom I will not tell. He said that the Arya Samajis take this as Dayananda and mission people take this as Vivekananda. To that extent. So, second, he bound Narendra for all eternity with the cord of infinite faith and love. Swamiji said, nobody believed me as Thakur has believed, not even my mother or brother. So that faith, my faith, he has seen what Narendra is, and because of that he has loved him. Third, he tested him in various ways. That was Thakur's habit. That inside he sees, but outside he tests. That means those who have a little spiritual experience, they are carried away. But those who have full experience, test outside also. He tested him in various ways and knew that his inward vision did not bear false witness to Narendra's greatness and purpose in life. Externally also he checked it. Fourth, he taught Narendra in various ways, and molded him in such a way that he might become a fit instrument to fulfill that great purpose of his life. So Saradananda Swamiji described Vivekananda always as Sri Ramakrishna Charanashrita Pujapad Narendra Vivekananda. So he molded him. Fifth, when the disciples' education was complete, education is this training. The master instructed Narendra, now possessed of the immediate knowledge of Brahman, how to proceed with the work of establishing religion. One thing, Dharma Sanstapana, how to do, he instructed. You know, in the last days in Kashipur, he used to call Narendra and talk to him privately for hours. And at last, confidently placed him in charge of this work, as well as of the order founded by himself. He made him the leader of Ramakrishna Sangha and the chief carrier of this work. These are the 5 types. The master's faith and love for Narendra were born of his wonderful visions. So, second point is faith and love. And he is explaining that they depended on the first part. The master had some wonderful visions about his greatness, we said, before Narendra came to Dakshineshwar. It was owing to the influence of those visions that he regarded Narendra ever since their acquaintance with an eye of infinite faith and love. Infinite faith. Who else believed Narendra like that? Girish said, because there was a complaint mongering in those days. Girish said that even if I see him by my open eyes doing something wrong, I will disbelieve my eyes, I will not disbelieve Narendra. Because Thakur said.
When regarding the karma yoga, other things Swami introduced. If karma yoga in the Sangha, that Swami introduced, at that time Holy Mother also says, what Narayan is doing is.
Yes. Holy Mother has not mistaken Thakur even for a second. And she knows Narendra fully well, herself. And Narendra, when he started this mission, he said only one person sympathized with us. And she had that current of faith and love flowed uniformly in his heart throughout the Master's life and bound Narendra to him throughout Master's life, remaining life. Bound Narendra with a cord of love that knew no breaking. That is love actually. Freedom. You do whatever like. I love you. Because I know what you are. It is on this solid foundation of faith and love that the entire structure of the Master's teaching and sometimes the testing of Narendra were built. So he knows his potential. So he teaches him and tests now and then, that is, learn the teaching or not. The reason why the Master tested us, so that comes now. Why he tested? The question may be posed, why did the Master test Narendra, though he knew his greatness and the purpose of his advent with the help of his own yogic visions? The simple reason is that even God-men like the Master, not to speak of ordinary people, when they enter the realm of Maya and assume a body, have their visions more or less blurred, and there arises a possibility of error regarding the things seen by them. Very critical. Saradananda Swamiji is describing Thakur like that. Because the body is Maya. Both Naren's body and Thakur's body. Explaining this to us, the Master said, you cannot give a lasting shape to gold without mixing it with some baser metal. Sattvagun must have some Rajagun, Tamagun, then only human body can be made. Even so, bodies and minds like those of incarnations cannot be produced out of pure sattva, which reveals knowledge, if a little of rajas and tamas is not mixed with it. There was a wonderful manifestation of spiritual knowledge in the Master, who was having supernatural visions by the grace of the Divine Mother when he was undergoing sadhana. So he has developed that. On many occasions, he doubted the truth of those visions and could accept them fully only after tasting them. So, sadhana also same thing. Was it therefore surprising that he would now taste the wonderful visions he had had about Narendra before accepting them as true? How the Master looked upon Narendra. It must be admitted that of the 5 modes of Master's behavior towards Narendra mentioned above, 3 of them, namely faith blended with love, tasting and teaching, began simultaneously. Then when he was perfect, then the remaining thing. We have already given the reader a brief account of the first kind of the Master's behavior towards Narendra, faith and love, Premananda Swami and Vaikuntha, those you have given. Or the Master's faith in and love for him. We shall have to say much more about it later. For the Master's life had never before been so intimately united with that of any one of the devotees who had taken refuge in him as with that of Narendra. You know the joke. Narendra is telling joke that if I had not preached, who would have known Thakur? Latu Maharaj said, if Thakur was not there, you would have been an advocate in a lane. As soon as he met one of his great disciples, Lord Jesus said, I will build my spiritual temple on the steady and immovable foundation of the life of this man of firm faith. But we should not mistake here. This Jesus said about St. Peter. And Saint Peter is recognized as Saradananda Swami. And Narendra more resembles John in the Christ disciples. Anyway, but foundation is the same thing. Urged by providence, such a conviction arose in the master's mind too. The moment he met Narendra, the master had the vision that Narendra was his son, his friend, born to carry out his commands. So this relationship is complex. One more thing he has not added here. Thakur said, in me there is a mother, in female, and in him there is a man. So these mutual relations are all overlapping. To give an example, Arjuna is known as Krishna's friend. But was there no other relation? When he sees the Vishwarup, then he says, Piteva putrasya sakeva sakyo priyaharasi deva sudam. So there also that Madhura is there. Father, son, friend, and Priyakar place. Born to carry out his commands, and that the lives of Narendra and himself, like those of a pair of lovers, yes, it has come here. Pair of lovers were eternally tied together with an unbreakable cord of love. He has not only mentioned which, but such love is an exalted spiritual love in which the lover gives complete freedom to the beloved. That is alokita. Yet keeps the other as one's own from age to age. Age to age this is carried, and he is his own. Let him have freedom. It is love in which each of the pair feels happy to give his all to the other, wanting nothing in return. Saradananda Swami has gone deep into it. It is doubtful indeed whether the world has ever witnessed such an episode of selfless love enacted before, as we saw in the lives of the Master and Narendra. We are quite conscious of our incapacity to explain clearly to the reader all the phases of this extraordinary love. We shall, however, give an indication of it in the interest of truth, and then discuss the Master's behavior towards Narendra in detail.
When Swamiji talks about triangle of love,
yeah.
So there,
that's
love, no bargaining.
No bargaining.
So that he comes from his relationship with Thakur, and then he has put it to words.
Swamiji's every lecture, when I read, he sees Thakur and is speaking. One or two exceptions. Where he talks of woman, he is seeing mother and speaking. The erroneous impression of the ordinary people about Narendra. Now this is, my teacher told me on the first week. He tested me in various ways. And I asked him a question that I cannot understand the need of a guru. For 7 days he explained that. Same and similar. Self-confidence appears as ego. Ego appears as self-confidence. Like that, many things are similar but not the same. Appearance different, things same. Appearance same, things not same. And this cannot be known by a mind which works in Maya. This can be known only by a Brahmagya who sees all these things. That is what it is. That is the Guru. So here Saradananda Swamiji will give his own example. Man like Saradananda Swamiji misunderstood Narendra. Just as Narendra saw the Master's purity, renunciation, and single-minded devotion, and became attracted to him in the first meeting. Even so, the Master, it seems to us, was charmed to see his boundless self-confidence and love of truth, and made him his own from the first day they met. If we leave aside the Master's yogic visions about Narendra's greatness and glorious future and try to find out the cause of their wonderful mutual attraction, what we have said before becomes evident. They have tested each other. People in general, devoid of insight, regarded Narendra's wonderful self-confidence as arrogance, his boundless vigor as insolence, and his austere love of truth as a feigning or as an example of undeveloped intellect. What terrible analysis. It is doubtless that they came to that conclusion from seeing Narendra was careless on these things. By seeing his absolute indifference to people's praise, his plain speaking, his free and unhesitating behavior regarding all matters, not conventional. And above all, his disdain to conceal anything for fear of anybody. He does not like, that is not there. That is truth, I will behave like that. One of his neighbors, we remember, said to us about Narendra before we had been acquainted with him, there is a boy in that house. I have never seen such a more hopelessly spoiled one than he. Having taken his BA degree, he has become extremely vain, as if the vast world did not count at all with him. He starts singing audaciously in the presence of his father and other superiors, keeping time on kettle drums with his palm and distended fingers. He goes along smoking a cigar in the presence of the elders of the quarter, and so on in all matters. So external behavior. One day shortly after this, we went to the Master. Perhaps it was our second or third visit to him, and heard him narrating Narendra's good qualities thus. The author heard Narendra's praise from the Master. Speaking with Ratan, the chief officer of the garden house of Jagannath Malik, and pointing to us, the Master said, "These boys are good. This boy has passed 1.5 examination." What is Shakur's calculation? Entrance, matric was called entrance. That is one examination. Then, and first year is 1.5. FA means intermediate, first arts examination. So that will make the second complete. So I was preparing for the FA examination that year. He is polite and calm, but I have not seen another boy like Narendra. He is as efficient in music, vocal and instrumental, as in the, which instrument he played? Pakhwaj. Tabla, Pakhwaj. As in the acquisition of knowledge, in conversation as well as in religious matters. Is this like this? Let me see. He loses normal consciousness in meditation during whole nights. My Narendra is a coin with no alloy whatsoever. Ring it and you hear the truest sound. I see other boys, some have passed 2 or 3 examinations with the utmost training. There it ends. They are a spent of force. But Narendra is not like that. He does everything with the greatest ease. To pass an examination is but a trifle with him. He goes to the Brahma Samaj also and sings devotional songs there, but he is not like other Brahmas. He is a true knower of Brahman. He sees light when he sits for meditation. Is it for nothing that I love Narendra so much? One place I am feeling a slight doubt, as well as in religious matters. Amar Tinni Dharma Vishay. All right. No, because in some other place, Thakur has said, even then he is Indriya and he wants God. Even then. That means the more talents a man has, the more chances of going astray. And if there is no talent, they are meaningless. So talents are there, but he is Indriya and he wants God. We were charmed to hear those words and desiring to be acquainted with Narendra, asked him, Sir, where does Narendra live? The master replied, Narendra is the son of Vishwanath Datta of Shimla, Calcutta. Afterwards, when we returned to Calcutta and made inquiries, we came to know that the young man so much praised by the master was the very person whom our friend, his neighbor, had calumniated so vehemently. Quite astonished, we thought how improper our judgments on others' characters often turn out to be when we base them on the casual activities of those persons. The author's erroneous impression about the Narendra at his first meeting with him. This had already happened. It will not be out of place here to mention another incident connected with this topic. One day we had the good fortune to meet Narendranath at the house of a friend a few months before we heard the master describing his good qualities in that manner. That day we only saw him, but did not like to have a talk with him on account of an erroneous impression. But the words he spoke that day were so deeply imprinted on our memory that even after the lapse of many decades, it seems that we have heard them but yesterday. Sadhana, very depth he has talked. After some decades he is reproducing, as if we have heard them but yesterday. Before describing them, the circumstances under which we heard those words should be narrated. Otherwise, one will fail to understand why we carried that wrong impression of Narendranath on that occasion. The author's first meeting with Narendra at a friend's house. The friend in whose house we saw him that day had hired a two-storied building in front of Narendra's dwelling house at Gaurmohan Mukherjee's Lane in the Shimla Court. We had been fellow pupils in the same school for 4 or 5 years with that friend. 2 years before our friend was to appear for the entrance examination, he set out for England, but could not proceed further than Bombay. Failing in his ambition, he became the editor of a newspaper, wrote essays and poems in Bengali, and rose to be an author of a few books. Famous in some way. He had been married a short time previously. After that event, we heard from many sources that he was living an indifferent moral life and that he did not hesitate to earn money by various dishonest means. It was only for the purpose of ascertaining the truth of this that we went without notice to his house that day. The outward behavior of Narendra at that time. Sending him word through a servant, we were sitting in a room of the outer apartment when a young man entered the room and lolling against a bolster began humming a Hindi song in an absolutely nonchalant manner, which indicated his familiarity with the owner of the house. The song, as far as I remember, related to Sri Krishna. For the two words, Kanai and flute, distinctly fell on our ears. We could not view the young man with a kind eye inasmuch as his song about the black one's flute and his familiarity with our unprincipled friend were associated in our minds with his dress, which though not smacking of up-to-date fashion, was clean, his hair which was well tended, and his looks of absent-mindedness easily mistaken for coldness. Seeing him behave, that means he's singing love songs. Seeing him behave unabashedly in that manner and smoke tobacco afterwards, ignoring our presence altogether. Not even formally who are you. We happen to receive the impression that you are the faithful follower of our unprincipled friend, and that the latter had acquired his evil ways by mixing with such young men. Anyway, we also did not try to get introduced to him, as he assumed an attitude of great indifference and continued to be in his own mood even though he noticed us. Narendra's talk on literature with the friend. This which he remembered after decades. Very important. Our boyhood friend came out shortly after and speaking to us a word or two only, though we met each other after a long interval, began delightfully to talk on various subjects with the young man. Though we did not like that the indifference of his, we thought it was against etiquette to take leave suddenly and were listening to the conversation on English and Bengali literatures, which our friend, the literature, had with the young man. Although when they began the conversation, they were to a great extent agreed as to the function of high-class literature, namely, that it should correctly express human sentiments. भाव ठीक अभिव्यक्त करवे से literature. It is all right, but namely, there arose a difference of opinion between them regarding the question whether a composition expressing any and every kind of human sentiment should be called literature only because it correctly represents it. I will tell some incident in. I told you about Yogatmananda, who is in Providence now. He was my student. So talk was why one should not go to theatre, cinema. He said that we go to see the art. How best are the expressions. I said a bad thing is expressed beautifully, it will create bad impression in your mind. So what thing is expressed you should say? Not only the expression is beautiful. So that is the point of difference between Swamiji and that. Our friend, as far as we can remember, took up the affirmative position, whereas the young man held the contrary opinion. He refuted our friend's position and tried to convince him that no composition, simply by virtue of expressing sentiment, good or bad, correctly, could be classed as a piece of high-class literature if it did not accord with good taste and establish a high ideal. Literature is meant to establish high ideal. Where we get this ancient literature? Valmiki, because he saw that crunch, music or poetry came out of his mouth first. So he approached Narada and said, what shall I do with this poetry? Narada told him, poetry should be used only to describe an idea. Then Valmiki said, shall I imagine some idea? He said, no. You study Ramchandra. And Narada, in 100 verses, have described Ramchandra. That is called the Mool Ramayana, part of the Valmiki Ramayana. And told Valmiki, you make a detailed study and describe it. That is how the Ramayana has come. Good taste and establish idea. Suruchi should be, not vulgar taste. In support of his own position, the young man mentioned the books of the famous English and Bengali literary men, beginning with Chaucer, and showed how each of them gained immortality because he adhered to this high principle. The young man said, in conclusion, although, now in English this sentence, otherwise talk was in Bengali. Although man feels all kinds of good and bad sentiments, he has always been straining to express some particular ideal in his mind. Experiences, but he is expressing some idea. It is only in the realization and manifestation of that particular ideal that all the difference between man and man exists. What ideal he is trying to realize and express. Thinking that the enjoyment of sights, tastes, etc. is permanent and real, ordinary men make the realization of it the aim of their life. Realization of this temporary enjoyment, that is the aim of life. They idealize what is apparently real. This is in English. They idealize what is apparently real, not real, but appears as real, and they make that ideal. There is a little difference between those people and beasts. There is a strong language. High-class literature can never be created by men of this type. There is another class of men who, unable to remain satisfied with the realization of the pleasure of enjoying what is seemingly real, feel higher and higher ideals within and are anxious to mold all outward things after that pattern. They want to realize the ideal. These people idealize the real, apparently real, and they want to realize the ideal. These are the two sentences in English. It is this class of men only who create real literature. Again, now Thakur comes here. Again, those among them who have recourse to the highest ideal, some higher ideal they are representing. Then somebody is going to the highest ideal and try to realize it in life, have generally to stand outside worldly life, transcendent. I have seen the Paramahansa of Dakshineshwar alone to have realized that ideal in life. That is why I have reverence for him. Now Saradananda Swamiji's conclusion from it. Talk is all right. We came to be acquainted with Narendra's greatness through the master. We were of course astonished with the scholarship of the young man, that took it as a scholarship, and his power of expressing those profound ideas. But we were disappointed to think that there was no agreement between his words and actions, inasmuch as we found a close relation existing between him and our friend. We then took leave of our friend. We were charmed to hear from the master the above-mentioned catalogue of Narendra's good qualities a few months after this event and went to his house to be introduced to him. When we came to know that the young man seen by us before was the master's much praised Narendranath, our astonishment knew no limit. And I want to tell something about this mind working in Maya. My Swamiji. If you go to report to him anything, he would cross-question 1,000 times. If a friend went to him complaining about other friend, he will cross-question him 1,000 times. Now, one Swami, great Akavandan Swami, he was sent for some work. And coming that he was reporting. And our Swami was asking him question after question. So he said, don't you believe me? He said, if I did not believe you, why should I ask you? Then when he went away, I asked him, really you believe or not? He said, neither I believe nor I disbelieve. How can I believe when I know that the mind is working through Maya? And how can I disbelieve when I see the potential Brahman in him? That is the way they understood now. The master recognized Narendra from the beginning. He has seen the inside. Ordinary people contented with walking along the beaten track happen very often to regard Narendra as arrogant and insolent and of improper conduct when they saw his external behavior. But the master never fell into that error. From the very start of their acquaintance, he could understand that Narendra's arrogance and insolence arose from his great self-confidence, which was the result of the extraordinary mental power hidden within him. See one by one, that is absolutely free behavior indicated nothing but the self-control natural to him. And that is indifference to the respect shown by people arose from the self-satisfaction due to his pure character. He knows what he is, so that people praise him. He had the conviction. Later on, when Narendra's bad things, not existing bad things were being reported, Narendra thought that Thakur also may believe. They said, let him believe, if people can judge like that. And then he understood that Thakur did not believe. After 2-3 times ignoring, when Bhavanath started telling, he said, if you talk again, I will not see your mouth, your face. For mother assured me, he simply said.
All these characters of Thakur, again we started with today, Alaukika. I'm just trying to connect. So it is really Alaukika.
Yes.
A Laukika personality will never be able to judge from that or rather appreciate that. We'll always be Alaukika.
And we always go by the external behavior. You see, I will tell you something. Conduct and character are two different things. Conduct is how we behave with people, and character is what we are. And when I was in South, I explained this, that no conduct I am telling. We give prizes at the end of the year, and we have given every prize. Now there have been some good boys, no prize. So it's a good conduct prize. In our college, there was one minister came as chief guest, and minister of very staunch character. And then our principal is telling that something. Then he said that those good for nothing people are different. And Thakur himself has said that the farmers select that bull. So our bosses, submissive people they like. The man must have something inside. He had the conviction that later on, the extraordinary nature of Narendra would fully blossom like a lotus of 1,000 petals and would be established in its own incomparable glory and greatness. Coming then into collision with the world, scorched by miseries, that arrogance and insolence of his would melt into infinite compassion. His extraordinary self-confidence would reinstill hope in the broken-hearted, and so his confidence will enter into others. And his free behavior, remaining within the bounds of control in all respects, would point out to others that self-control alone was the path to real freedom. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyarnam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaaya te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Now gone, now finished. Now I have to put this.